As a child, I was introduced to a Saturday morning cartoon show called the X-Men. It featured a unique group of superpowered mutants and larger-than-life villains. As I grew older, I noticed just how far past comic books the license had expanded, with feature-length films, toy lines, and of course video games. Counting the Wolverine solo outings, as well as appearances in supporting roles by random team members, the X-Men have been featured in well over 40 video games, and it's time we take a look at the top 5.
Number 5.
X-Men vs. Street Fighter!
Children of the Atom and Marvel superheroes would be the first fighting games to feature the X-Men. However, it would not be until X-Men vs. Street Fighter that they would cement their place within the genre. It'd be a rare occurrence to see me in an arcade playing a fighting game, as this is not a preferred genre of mine, unless it was this cabinet. This would be the game that would bring Capcom's Versus series to the mainstream, and would essentially launch its ever-popular tag team fighting system. The controls were spot on, and the graphics were colorful and vibrant. The exhilaration of seeing Wolverine and Ryu square off on screen for the first time simply could not be replicated.
Number 4.
At the outset of X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, you are presented with a stage select similar to that of other popular Capcom games like Mega Man. On each of these levels, the player takes control of a different X-Man who plays uniquely and has their own set of special moves to match their mutant powers. The controls are solid, which is necessary since mutant abilities are mapped to Street Fighter-like button sequences. These initial levels only serve as a training ground of sorts, as the missions that follow allow for any of the 5 characters to be used. Graphically, this is the best of the 16-bit X-Men games, with character models that are large, colorful, and beautifully rendered to resemble their Saturday morning cartoon counterparts. It was a blast to feel like part of the cartoon with this game, and it still holds up today.
Number 3.
X-Men.
In the 80s, Marvel tried their hand at a cartoon of the X-Men by creating a pilot called Pride of the X-Men. The episode was not very well received, and a show never came to be, though I do strongly recommend checking it out. The silver lining, however, is that it would become the source material for an amazing arcade game. One of the more impressive aspects was a 2-screen variation that housed up to 6 players. The gameplay was that of a traditional arcade beat-em-up, featuring responsive controls, beautiful graphics, and some infamously bad lines of voice acting, like Magneto spouting,
X-Men, welcome to die!
It would be 18 years before we would get a home version with a PSN remake. Infinite Lives made this version much easier, but there's no denying the fun of getting some friends together and facing off against the forces of Magneto.
Number 2.
Of the games based on the Saturday morning cartoon, this one falls short in the graphics department if matched up against Mutant Apocalypse. Characters are still recognizable to their counterparts, but the sprites are a bit smaller, with less detail and more of a dull color palette. Fortunately for Clone Wars, it excels in every other category. The gameplay is smoother with a simple control scheme, the music is top-notch, and the game even boasts a co-op mode. Characters really feel unique and have varying abilities that set them apart from one another. Wolverine can scale walls or ceilings, Nightcrawler can teleport to higher platforms, and once unlocked, Magneto allows the player to hover around freely. With fantastic levels, like an early one inside of a Sentinel, and some creative boss fights, this is one of the few games that made me sorry I didn't have access to a Sega Genesis growing up.
Number 1.
My hopes of the X-Men appearing in a role-playing game would finally come to be with the release of XMen Legends, and then promptly approved upon with its sequel. The story revolved around the imposing threat of Apocalypse, forcing the X-Men to team up with Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which resulted in a greatly expanded roster. Players would explore the world in a top-down action RPG space with a fully customizable party of 4. There was so much freedom in mixing and matching the team, as characters leveled individually, and the way that they complemented one another changed. The adventure was lengthy, there was a ton of collectibles, and the hub areas even had X-Men trivia stations. There isn't a whole lot more that I can say about how great this game is, other than that the one and only Patrick Stewart even returned to voice Professor Xavier.
Very good. Until we meet again.
Hey, did you like that video? If you did, be sure to let us know by clicking the like button and leaving a comment. If you want to be first in line for any new content, be sure to subscribe to our channel and then hit up our Facebook page. The link's in the description below to see what's coming up next.